very, very
Nothing
much
you decide.
Right. So the discussion today was to find out if you wanted to discuss it here before the elected officials meeting on Thursday. I'm assuming you've had some individual interaction. Did you want to talk about it more now or not share it at the elected officials meeting?
I'm going to talk about different options. Just
Oh,
theory.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to talk with our elected officials and to share some ideas, that they may have some ideas as well, and just sort of check the pulse would be very helpful.
We have different options. One option would be to just ask for a total debrucing. One we do similar to what Lakewood did, where there would be a time limit. So, do you want to know now or you want to wait?
So I guess the question is, what do you want to share with the electeds on Thursday? Is it something you need to have a conversation about today? Or?
Well, let me ask you this. The one thing that I think will be really important, and we don't know what this would be, but it might be helpful to add into the draft copy of the ballot language a placeholder for where exactly those dollars will go, which we'll know more about as we move forward through these conversations and work in collaboration with the elected officials and others, and as we make those decisions moving forward. So it might be helpful just to make sure that in the draft language we just say placeholder for here's how those dollars who are transparent or clear, that simple language, clear language that Commissioner Zabel talked about. Just having a placeholder I think will be important as a reminder to us.
Yes, so the way it's currently drafted at the end, it says with such excess revenue to be used to fund the cost of providing county services such as public safety, road construction and maintenance, human services, open space, parks and recreation, capital improvements, debt service payments, and any other lawful purpose. So that gives us kind of the broad use. If the decision is made to make it more narrowly tailored and just limit specific uses, we can do that. But the way we originally drafted it was to show, here are the examples of things we're going to use, but we have the ability to use it for any lawful purpose related to the general fund.
See, so here's a question. And we're going to meet with various electeds about where they're going to make their specific cuts. But, the sheriff's already communicated, he's identified the jail as one of the areas he's going to do pretty significant cuts. So to the extent that we just do the cuts, we're going to lose jail beds. To the extent we ask the voters to keep some of the already authorized bill levy revenue and have additional funds, some of that money would go to restoring those jail beds. So how do you communicate that?
Yeah.
And that's just to get into the, you want to make the ballot language transparent, but you also want it to be a 5-page treatise.
Well, no one's going to read that.
Right,
Well,
so how do you-
but I do think you can. I think there's maybe a hybrid between this and then saying specifically where certain dollars will be earmarked. So the community is assured and public safety is a top priority for them that, we're going to take care of those jail beds. It just feels a little bit premature to get into the details right now, but I think just having that conversation as we go through the budget process and have that conversation on Thursday, I think that the more transparent we can be about where the dollars go and then having sort of these broad categories makes a whole lot of sense.
We could do it for example. For example, the current budget cut requires reduction of this many jail beds. With the additional money, we can ensure continued operation at this level or greater, or something like that. So to give them a concrete example.
They want to be reassured.
So,
that-
yeah, my guess is right now, the road and bridge has some projects they would like to complete or they can't complete. How would do this all of them, some of them? How do we do that?
I think maybe too high level probably would, we can talk about it more because you don't want it to get too long.
Right.
But if you give them the flavor for, well, we know the road work is going to be expensive. We know that that number of beds equates to this much money. Then,
Well, the other thing that we can do too, and we can work with the communications team depending on what we decide moving forward here and when, is we can have, we did this for the mill levy increases for the school district, so it was really clear. So for example, for schools, we would outline in the bond package what specifically they were going to get. I think for when it comes to roads, when it comes to public safety, human services, and some of these other issues, we can outline through communication materials on our website for different groups that we're meeting with, where those dollars are generally going to go. I think if we're in town halls, we can talk about how these dollars affect all parts of Jefferson County. I think that's really important for people to hear. Obviously, if we're talking about roads or we're talking even just about public safety, it's going to impact the entire county, and being able to communicate that.
Right, but so the question is, it's one thing to communicate those in town halls, it's another thing is what is in the ballot.
I think we need more time to talk a little bit more about what that looks like in the ballot, and yes, I think that we should do that. And I'm saying that in addition to that, we can go into a little bit more detail in some of those communication pieces when we're talking to people and refer them to the website and other areas. But I think otherwise, if the ballot's too long,
Yeah, I
to
mean,
use,
yeah.
but I think there's a middle
Yeah,
ground.
you gotta find that right.
We'll figure it out.
One suggestion is that you don't include areas like open space where it's clearly funded by something else.
Yeah.
General
We don't
fund.
want-
So just making sure.
Right,
that-
open space.
Just
and
general
Specific to
fund
general
kind of
General fund.
items would
Yeah.
have to be, because we don't fund them.
So do we have 5 options?
Um,
Four.
And I actually talked to Casey yesterday, I found, when going through and looking at different options, El Paso did one which, it's still kind of a work in progress with our version, because I haven't gotten yet, they passed a resolution that imposed a county revenue cap. And so the way they did it was they allowed the county to expend in excess of what the taper cap would be, but the revenues were still limited by the county revenue cap. So they created.
So they made their own.
They created their own cap, so they're saying, we won't exceed this, but we're allowed to go over the Tabor caps. And so I have to find the resolution to kind of see what they did.
Yeah, so my first question is, well, what are the parameters of their cap?
That was-
Why is
that
it,
was- that was
why is
one of
it
them.
different than Tabor? And I
Right.
don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have it yet. but-
Well, and another option is that we have the revenue levy law, where you can't go over 5.5% in revenue. So it could be just stated, we will still maintain within the levy law.
Okay.
Another option. Versus adding
Created a different
another-
cap,
Yeah,
So that would be a 5.4?
I think it's 5.5%, and Dan, we haven't ever hit that in the past, right? So, there's low risk in terms of that we'll be limiting ourselves if we're just basically
So
stating we
That
stay
might,
within
that might.
that.
Yeah, so instead of referring to a resolution, just referring to the existing cap.
That'd
Yeah.
be interesting, so
Yeah.
I mean, I like to learn from that. Yeah, one of the things I threw out, I talked to you guys about before, is reducing the authorized mill levies by some amount and de-brucing that lower mill levy. So that's something.
I prepared a motion on that.
That was.
So it'd be kind of like recognizing,
Right.
telling the public, we recognize that property values have increased and that maybe we don't need all the mills that have been authorized, but if you would lower the mills some amount and de-bruce that different amount, maybe that would be something that would be kind of kind of show we're trying to be fiscally responsible, but at the same time recognizing that we have budget challenges. So that's one idea. Again, it's one of those things where, we deal with this every day, so we understand it. But for people who are involved in other things,
Maybe
to
to
get them
positive.
the time to explain it in the way they understand it, it's always a challenge.
Right. The other risk to that is if our property values actually decrease considerably, then you wouldn't be able to collect enough revenue because you've limited how many mills you have.
You would have reduced your, yes, that would be.
So that's
That would be,
another risk.
what is pro and con of these things. But then you could always, because Tabor allows you to go to the voters. If that happened, you could go to the voters again and say, we lowered the mill levy.
Well, the voters every year.
Well, I'm thinking that is something that wouldn't happen.
But if that does happen, going to the voters when the economy has already plummeted, you're probably not, yeah. So
But by the same token, if that's why lower property tax would be a thing they need. So those are all things we had to think about.
So for Thursday, did you want to share the actual language in there or more of a summary of what the options are? How did you want to?
I mean, I'm finally sharing, like I said, the risk you run is if people start acting like this, like one sample is
Be all end all.
is the be all end all, or this is what we're doing. And when that's not the case, these are just, we're throwing, as long as people understand that these are just discussion items, you can't, it's hard to discuss things purely theoretical.
Well-
It's much more productive to discuss things when they're in writing, as long as people understand that these are just for the purposes of discussion.
And it's good to get their opinion, I think, but also not that they think that they are the decision maker on this. And we could give that false.
Yeah, and
Well,
just because you put stuff out doesn't mean we made a decision to go forward.
No, but to make them
Yeah.
think that, we're gonna vote now and it's 5-4 on this one, and that we've gotta be careful with that they're not the decision maker on this, and.
Well, and I think what we could do two things. Here's one thought. We could give a high-level overview of some potential options. And I do think that if we share the ballot language with them, we have to be really clear that this is early thinking. There is nothing set in stone. This is for us as elected officials to have a conversation and to consider the pros and cons. What are the challenges we may face? And I think that is the richness of the conversation moving forward. So I'm comfortable with doing both of those things as long as it's clearly marked draft.
Discussion.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we have it here, some may be interested in seeing it, especially how that opening language
Yeah.
opens up with,
So we have the watermark draft, but I could also put like an opening paragraph, which basically says for purposes of the meeting, or whatever.
We're not kidding, this is just for discussion.
but we want to be fully transparent too.
Yeah, I can circulate that in there.
We can add another option with the 5.5.
Yeah, I think that's an
Limit,
interesting,
yeah,
that's an
that's a good-
interesting.
Another
It's kind of a-
variation of the.
Yeah, variation. I still like
Talk
what
about
Carl
pros and
Springs is doing, or El Paso.
Yeah, it'd be great to find that.
But those are kind of the two options under the same umbrella.
Yes.
I did see a thing on the sort of about El Paso's asking about the two things. So that may not be the best option.
Okay.
So anything else you want for the elected officials meeting?
I'll touch base with you and then we'll tweak this a little bit and then send it off so
Okay.
one of you guys can see the.
Sounds good.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Just hand it out to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the same, just hand it out to
You
that.
want it? Let's do that.
We'll have maybe the same.
Yeah.
All right. Kim, did you have a county attorney's report?
I do have something I want to put on the county attorney's report, just really quick. Thanks, Holly.